The gymnasium doors slammed shut with a metallic echo. 5 shadows circled the smaller figure in the center like hungry wolves. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting harsh angles across sneering faces. Then a blur of motion. A roundhouse kick sliced through the air. The lead attacker flew backward, blood streaming from his nose as his body crashed into the bleachers. "You picked the wrong teacher to mess with." Eleanor Bennett's voice cut through the stunned silence, steady as granite despite her racing heartbeat. The remaining 4 froze, suddenly uncertain. Their target wasn't cowering. She wasn't begging. She was smiling. But let's rewind to 3 weeks earlier, when Eleanor first walked through the doors of Westbrook High School. Monday morning arrived wrapped in September fog. Eleanor stood before her new class, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her cardigan. 28 pairs of eyes studied her with the brutal honesty only teenagers possessed. She was young for a teacher 26, fresh-faced, barely 5'4" in heels. "Good morning, everyone. I'm Miss Bennett, your new English literature teacher." Her voice carried surprising authority despite her petite frame. Most students offered polite attention. Most, but not all. In the back corner, Vincent Lawson sprawled across his desk like he owned it. 6'2", quarterback shoulders, dead eyes that had seen too much and cared too little. He didn't bother looking up from his phone. "Mr. Lawson," Eleanor's tone sharpened slightly. "Phones away, please." Vincent's gaze finally lifted, cold and calculating. He studied her the way a cat studies a mouse, determining if it was worth the energy to pounce. After 3 deliberate seconds, he slipped the phone into his pocket with exaggerated slowness. "Of course, Ms. Bennett." Each word dripped mockery. "Wouldn't want to disrespect your authority." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Everyone knew Vincent Lawson. Everyone knew what happened to teachers who challenged him. The last one had transferred mid-semester after her car tires were mysteriously slashed. Twice. Eleanor merely smiled. "Thank you. Now, let's discuss our first novel, Lord of the Flies. Who can tell me what this book explores?" A thin hand rose tentatively from the middle row. Oliver Peterson, all knobby elbows and defensive hunches. Fresh bruises painted purple-yellow watercolors across his jawline. "It's about how people become savage without rules." "Excellent start, Oliver." Eleanor's approval made the boy straighten slightly. The novel examines what happens when civilization's constraints disappear, when might makes right becomes the only law. "Sounds efficient?" Vincent's voice slithered from the back. "Natural selection. The strong survive. The weak." His eyes found Oliver. "Adapt or perish." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Oliver shrank into his seat, while other students suddenly found their desktops fascinating. Eleanor walked slowly down the aisle, stopping beside Vincent's desk. Up close, she could smell his expensive cologne, failing to mask the scent of cigarettes and something darker anger that had fermented into cruelty. "Interesting interpretation, Mr. Lawson, but Golding actually argues the opposite. The boy's descent into savagery is portrayed as tragedy, not triumph. The strong who prey on the weak aren't heroes, they're cautionary tales about power corrupted." She held his stare, unflinching. "In this classroom, everyone is equal, everyone is safe, everyone belongs." Vincent's jaw tightened. "We'll see about that." The bell rang, shattering the tension. Students fled like water through a broken dam, eager to escape the suffocating atmosphere. Oliver lingered, shoving books into his bag with trembling hands. "Oliver." Eleanor's voice was gentle now. "Stay a moment." He froze, fight or flight instincts screaming. Teachers who noticed usually made things worse. "I just wanted to say your analysis was spot on. You have real insight." Oliver blinked, confused by kindness. Thanks. If you ever need someone to talk to, my door's always open, okay?" He nodded quickly and scurried out, leaving Eleanor alone with her thoughts. She'd recognized the signs immediately: the strategic bruising, the hypervigilance, the way other students gave him wide berth. Oliver Peterson was being systematically terrorized, and she'd bet her degree she knew by whom. Lunchtime painted Westbrook High in stark social hierarchies. The cafeteria hummed with territorial negotiations, jocks here, theater kids there, invisible lines carved deep as trenches. Eleanor carried her salad to the loneliest island in this archipelago of adolescence, Oliver's empty table. "Mind if I sit?" Oliver's sandwich froze halfway to his mouth. You want to sit here with me? If that's okay. But teachers sit in the faculty room." "I'm not big on segregation." Eleanor settled across from him, ignoring the stares and whispers spreading like wildfire. "How long have you been at Westbrook?" 3 years. Oliver's voice barely carried over the ambient noise. "Since freshman year. Made many friends." A bitter laugh. "Friends are luxury items here. I'm more discount goods." Eleanor's heart clenched. "Oliver, you shouldn't sit with me, Miss Bennett." The words tumbled out desperately. "They'll target you too. Vincent doesn't like when people mess with the natural order." "Let them try." Something in her tone made Oliver look up sharply. For just a moment, he glimpsed something beneath the soft cardigans and kind smiles, something that had weathered storms and emerged harder for it. Across the cafeteria, Vincent Lawson watched with narrowed eyes. Nathan Carter, his perpetual shadow, snickered beside him. "Look at that. New teacher thinks she's a hero. Heroes are just victims who haven't been educated yet." Vincent's voice was thoughtful, almost philosophical. "She'll learn." The next few days established a pattern. Eleanor intervened in small acts of cruelty with surgical precision. When Madison Chen's books were accidentally knocked from her arms, Eleanor appeared immediately to help gather them. When freshmen were cornered for freshman tax, she materialized like a guardian spirit. Each intervention was met with Vincent's calculating stare and Nathan's mocking laughter. The other teachers noticed too, offering worried glances and subtle warnings. "You're new here," Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned casually in the copy room. "Sometimes it's better to pick your battles carefully. All battles against bullying are worth picking. Just remember, the Lawson family has deep roots in this town, very deep." Eleanor understood the subtext. Vincent's father was a city councilman. His mother ran 3 charities. Money and influence wrapped around Westbrook like kudzu, beautiful and suffocating in equal measure. But Eleanor had faced worse than entitled rich boys. Thursday evening found her alone in the school's auxiliary gym, a forgotten space that smelled of old rubber and determination. She'd gotten permission to use it after hours, claiming she needed space for lesson planning. The lie tasted justified as she flowed through Pumse forms, each movement precise as calligraphy. 10 years of training had carved strength into her small frame, turned her body into a weapon she prayed she'd never need to use. But prayer, she'd learned, was just hope dressed in Sunday clothes. Preparation was what kept you alive. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Message stark against the glowing screen. "Mind your business. Eleanor deleted it and continued her forms, each kick slicing higher, each punch driving harder. If they thought anonymous threats would cow her, they'd badly miscalculated. Friday morning delivered escalation wrapped in vandalism. Eleanor arrived to find her classroom door spray-painted with obscenities. Red letters screamed accusations about her character, her worth, her right to exist in their space. Principal O'Brien materialized, face creased with practiced concern. "Ms. Bennett, how terrible. Kids these days." He shook his head theatrically. "We'll have maintenance clean this immediately." "What about investigating who did it?" "Without proof." He spread his hands helplessly. "Best not to make waves. I'm sure it won't happen again." Eleanor recognized the dance bureaucratic shuffle, diplomatic sidestep, the administrative art of avoiding accountability. "I'd like to file a formal report." O'Brien's face tightened. "That seems excessive for a prank." "Vandalism and intimidation aren't pranks. Principal O'Brien, they're crimes." "Ms. Bennett," his tone shifted, patronizing patience for the naive newcomer. "You're new here. You don't understand how things work. The Lawson boy, that is. Some of our students come from prominent families. Accusations without evidence can be problematic." "Then I'll find evidence." She left his office with steel in her spine and fury in her heart. Behind her, O'Brien made a phone call, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. The vandalism had been cleaned by first period, but gossip traveled faster than maintenance. Students whispered behind hands, eyes tracking Eleanor with new interest. She taught with her usual passion, but underneath, her mind catalogued details. Nathan's fresh scratches from breaking a window, Madison's guilty glances. She'd seen something after class. Oliver approached hesitantly. "Ms. Bennett, about your door. You know who did it." He nodded miserably. "But I can't if I tell. They'll—" His hand unconsciously touched his ribs, and Eleanor understood. The bruises she couldn't see were worse than the ones she could. "Oliver, listen to me. You don't have to carry this alone anymore. You don't understand." The words exploded out, years of suppressed fear and rage. "Vincent owns this school. His friends, his family, they're untouchable. Last year, a kid tried to report them. His family's restaurant got shut down by health code violations. They had to move away." Eleanor absorbed this information, pieces clicking into place. Systemic corruption, generational intimidation. Vincent Lawson wasn't just a bully, he was the heir apparent to a small-town dynasty built on fear. "Thank you for trying to warn me," she said gently. "But some fights can't be avoided." That afternoon, Eleanor called Master Kim, her Taekwondo instructor from college. His voice crackled through international distance, wise and worried in equal measure. "Eleanor, violence solves nothing. I'm not seeking violence, Master Kim, but I won't abandon these kids." A long pause. "You remember what I taught you about the mountain and the storm? The mountain doesn't seek to fight the storm. It simply stands firm. And the storm exhausts itself against immovable stone. Be the mountain, Eleanor. But remember, sometimes the mountain must become the avalanche." That evening found her in the auxiliary gym again. But she wasn't alone. Madison Chen stood in the doorway, conflict written across her features. "Ms. Bennett, I need to tell you something." Eleanor lowered her guard stance, grabbing a towel. "Come in, Madison." The girl entered hesitantly, words tumbling out in a rush. "Nathan has a video of them planning something after school Monday in the main gym. They're going to teach you a lesson." How many? 5, maybe 6. Vincent says you need to understand the natural order. Madison's voice cracked. My little brother went here 2 years ago. They broke his wrist because he beat Nathan in chess. Made it look like a gym accident. We couldn't prove anything. Eleanor studied the girl's face, seeing echoes of her own past. You are brave for telling me. I'm not brave. I'm just tired. Tired of watching good people get hurt while everyone pretends not to see. Change starts with one person standing up. Madison, you just did. After Madison left, Eleanor sat in lotus position on the gym floor, centering herself. Monday would bring confrontation. She could feel it building like barometric pressure before a storm. Vincent Lawson thought she was just another idealistic teacher to break. He had no idea what she'd already survived. Flashback rippled through her consciousness. Unwanted, but undeniable. 16-year-old Eleanor, cornered in her high school stairwell, 3 senior girls, faces twisted with casual cruelty. Think you're so smart. Teacher's pet. The push came sudden and vicious. Concrete stairs rushed up to meet her, edges biting into spine and skull. Pain exploded in starbursts as she tumbled, landed wrong, felt something in her spirit crack worse than the ribs. Hospital ceiling tiles. The taste of copper and defeat. The pills they gave her for physical pain, and the ones she stockpiled for the other kind. The night she arranged them like promises on her bedside table. Each one a tiny exit door from a world that had proven too sharp, too cruel. Her mother's scream. The stomach pump. The therapist who spoke in soothing tones about trauma responses and recovery journeys. And then Master Kim. He'd found her at her community service placement teaching kids at the community center. Part of her healing process. Watched her flinch from sudden movements. Catalog exits. Carry fear like a security blanket. You have warrior spirit trapped in victim's body. He'd said simply, I can teach you to free it. 10 years later. Eleanor was no longer that broken girl. But she remembered her, honored her, and refused to let Oliver or any student become her. Monday arrived, dressed in storm clouds. Eleanor taught with unusual intensity, as if cramming last wisdom into potentially final lessons. Her Lord of the Flies discussion took on prophetic weight. Notice how Ralph tries reasoning with Jack's tribe, she told her eerily attentive class. He believes civilization, logic, and fairness will prevail. But Golding shows us a harder truth. Sometimes darkness must be met with strength. Vincent lounged in his usual corner, smile playing at cruel lips. Careful, Ms. Bennett. Sounds like you're advocating violence. I'm advocating justice, Mr. Lawson. There's a difference. Is there? He leaned forward, voice dropping to share philosophy like poison. Justice is just revenge dressed in prettier clothes. The strong take what they want. That's the only truth that matters. Eleanor moved down the aisle, stopping at his desk. Every eye tracked her movement. Breath held collectively. You know what's interesting about that philosophy, Vincent? It always comes from people who have never truly been strong. Real strength protects. Real strength lifts others. What you're describing isn't strength, it's fear cosplaying as power. His face flushed, fists clenching. Nathan half rose, ready to defend his leader's honor. But Vincent waved him down. After school, Ms. Bennett, time you learned how things really work here. I'll be there. The final bell rang like a funeral knell. Students filed out with unusual quiet, sensing tectonic plates shifting beneath their familiar world. Oliver grabbed Eleanor's arm, desperation bleeding through. "Don't go, please. It's not worth it." Eleanor covered his hand with hers, feeling bird-bone fragility beneath thin skin. "You are worth it, Oliver. You all are." She spent the next hour in preparation, removed jewelry that could be grabbed, tied hair in tight bun that couldn't be pulled, changed from heels to flat shoes with good grip, stretched methodically, warming muscles that might soon be tested. Her phone buzzed repeatedly, unknown numbers, escalating threats. She documented each one, forwarding to her personal email, evidence trail, just in case. At 4:30. Eleanor walked toward the main gymnasium. Her heart hammered staccato rhythm, but her breathing remained controlled. Master Kim's words echoed, "Fear is just excitement without breath." The door handle was cold beneath her palm. She turned it slowly, stepped into semi-darkness. Emergency lights cast everything in hellish red, like walking into a photograph's dark room. They were waiting. Vincent stood center court, arms crossed like a general surveying battlefield. Nathan flanked his right, baseball bat tapping against his palm in menacing rhythm. 3 others spread in semicircle: Marcus Thompson, Derek Liu, and James Porter, each one over 6 feet. Athletic, chosen for size and cruelty in equal measure. But then shadows shifted, revealing more figures. 8 total, not 5. The extras were older graduates who'd returned for this special occasion. Vincent's alumni network of violence. Eleanor's stomach dropped, but her face remained calm. She'd prepared for 5, maybe 6. 8 changed the mathematics of survival significantly. "Ms. Bennett?" Vincent's voice echoed in the empty space. "So glad you could join us for some extracurricular education." The gymnasium door slammed shut behind her. The lock clicked with finality that sent ice down her spine. She was trapped. The lock's click echoed like a coffin nail. Eleanor stood perfectly still, calculating distances and angles while her heart tried to escape through her ribs. 8 against 1. The math was brutal, but math had never been her strongest subject anyway. "Let's talk first," she said, voice steady as a surgeon's hand. "Whatever you think this accomplishes." "Talk?" Nathan's laugh was ugly, sharp. "We're past talking, teacher. Way past." Vincent raised a hand, silencing his lieutenant. He moved with the lazy confidence of an apex predator who'd never met anything higher on the food chain. "Actually, I'm curious. What did you think would happen? Ms. Bennett, did you imagine you'd waltz in here, play savior, and we'd all see the error of our ways? I thought you were smarter than this." Eleanor kept her breathing controlled, stance subtly shifting to defensive readiness. "Assault on school property. That's jail time. Vincent. Real jail, not juvie." "Assault?" Vincent's smile was all teeth, no warmth. "I don't see any assault. I see a teacher who stayed late, had an unfortunate accident in the gym. Tripped, maybe, hit her head. Tragic, really." The older boys chuckled, a sound like hyenas circling. One of them, Eleanor, didn't recognize him, but his letterman jacket said Westbrook alumni pulled out a phone. "Should probably turn that camera off," Vincent advised. "Wouldn't want anyone getting the wrong idea." Eleanor's mind raced. Madison had said she'd called for help, but how long would it take? Could she survive until then? "You know what your problem is?" Eleanor began moving slowly, creating distance, making them work for positioning. "You think fear equals respect. Classic mistake of every bully who ever lived. Spare us the psychology lesson." Derek Liu cracked his knuckles, anticipation gleaming. We're not here for extra credit. No, you're here because Vincent tells you to be. Because you're scared of becoming Oliver if you don't comply. Eleanor's eyes found each of them in turn. Marcus, your father hits you, doesn't he? So you hit smaller kids to feel powerful. Derek, your older brother made you feel worthless. So now you do the same. James. Shut up! Vincent's composure cracked like thin ice. You don't know anything about us. I know everything about you. Eleanor's voice dropped, became something harder, older. I know because I've been you, and I've been Oliver. I've stood on both sides of this equation. She began unbuttoning her cardigan with deliberate slowness. When I was 16, girls like you put me in the hospital, pushed me down concrete stairs for the crime of being different, smarter, smaller, easier to hurt. The cardigan dropped, revealing arms that told a different story than her soft teacher facade. Muscle definition earned through years of training. A small tattoo on her shoulder, Korean characters that spelled indomitable spirit. I tried to kill myself after that. Pills seemed easier than facing another day of torture. She rolled her shoulders, loosening up. But someone saved me. Taught me that strength isn't about hurting others. It's about having the power to hurt and choosing not to. Vincent scoffed, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. This wasn't following the script. Teachers were supposed to cower, beg, offer bribes or compromises. They weren't supposed to strip off cardigans and reveal warriors' bodies underneath. I trained for 10 years, Eleanor continued, voice conversational as she stretched her neck. Taekwondo, Hapkido, some Muay Thai for variety. 3rd-degree black belt, nationally ranked competitor. I tell you this not to threaten, but to inform. You have one chance to walk away. Silence stretched like a held breath. Then Vincent laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You're bluffing. No way. Eleanor moved, not toward them, but through a lightning-fast demonstration. A spinning hook kick that sliced air at head height. A palm strike that stopped millimeters from the wall, leaving a small crack in the plaster. A butterfly kick that seemed to defy gravity, landing silent as a cat. When she returned to ready stance, the atmosphere had shifted. Fear oozed from their pores like sour sweat. 2 of the alumni exchanged glances and headed for the door. This is crazy. Vince, we came to rough up some scared teacher, not fight Jackie Chan. Get back here! Vincent's voice cracked with desperation. She's still just one person. We have weapons. But the deserters were gone. Self-preservation overriding loyalty. 6 remained, but their confidence had evaporated like morning dew. Last chance, Eleanor said quietly. Leave now, and this ends. Stay, and you'll learn why Master Kim called me his most dedicated student. Nathan's courage was chemical, probably liquid, definitely stupid. He charged with the baseball bat raised high, screaming to drown his fear. Eleanor flowed like water. The bat whistled past her ear as she pivoted, caught his wrist, and redirected his momentum. Nathan's own force carried him face first into the wall. The bat clattered away as he crumpled, groaning. One down, she said calmly. Who's next? They came as a group then, trying to overwhelm with numbers. But Eleanor had drilled this scenario hundreds of times. Multiple attackers were about angles and movement, using their numbers against them. Derek threw a haymaker that Eleanor ducked, letting it crash into Marcus behind her. She swept James's legs while he was off balance from a missed grab. A precise strike to his solar plexus left him gasping on the floor like a landed fish. Marcus recovered, tried to grapple. Eleanor broke his hold with techniques that looked effortless, but sent lightning through his joints. A throw that Master Kim called autumn wind sent him sailing into the bleachers. Derek, panicking now, pulled a knife. The blade caught emergency lighting, red as fresh blood. Really? Eleanor's voice held disappointment more than fear. You brought a knife to a martial arts demonstration. He lunged, blade seeking soft places to nest. Eleanor's hand blurred, caught his wrist, twisted. The knife flew in a perfect arc, embedding in the wooden floor 10 feet away. A palm strike to his temple sent Derek to dreamland, unconscious before he hit the ground. Stop! One of the remaining boys, a senior Eleanor vaguely recognized, threw up his hands. I'm out! This is insane! He sprinted for the door, fumbling with the lock before disappearing into the hallway. That left Vincent and one alumni, a thick-necked former wrestler who looked less confident by the second. Get her, Troy, Vincent commanded, but his voice held more plea than power. Troy looked at his fallen comrades, at Eleanor standing unmarked among the wreckage, and made an executive decision. Sorry, Vince, this ain't worth prison time. He backed toward the door, hands raised peacefully. Ma'am, I apologize. This was stupid. Eleanor nodded. Learning from mistakes is the first step toward wisdom. And then there were two. Vincent's face cycled through emotions like a broken slot machine. Rage, fear, disbelief, and something that might have been respect if it hadn't been poisoned by pride. You think you've won. He pulled his own knife, hands shaking slightly. You think this changes anything? I own this school. My family owns this town. You own nothing but your own fear. Eleanor began circling slowly, maintaining distance. That's why you hurt others, because you're terrified someone will discover how weak you really are? I'm not weak. The words ripped out raw, revealing wounds beneath armor. I'm not. Vincent. Eleanor's voice gentled, seeing the broken boy beneath the bully facade. Who told you that being kind was weakness? Who taught you that mercy was shameful? His face contorted. Shut up. You don't know. Your father. Eleanor ventured, watching him flinch. Did he teach you with words or fists? Both. Probably. Made you feel small. So you had to make others smaller. Shut up, Vincent charged, knife leading. Eleanor had fought angry opponents before. Anger made people fast, but sloppy. Powerful, but predictable. She flowed around his wild slashes like smoke, each miss feeding his frustration. On his fourth lunge, she struck, not to harm, but to disarm literally. The knife went flying as Vincent's wrist went numb from precise pressure point strikes. Before he could recover, Eleanor swept his legs and guided him to the ground with controlled force. She could have hurt him then, could have rained down years of justified fury, given him a taste of the pain he'd inflicted on others. Instead, she applied a submission hold firm but not cruel, inescapable but not injurious. Listen to me very carefully, she said, mouth close to his ear. This helplessness you feel, this powerlessness, this is what Oliver feels every single day. This is what every kid you've terrorized lives with constantly. Vincent struggled, but Eleanor's technique was flawless. He was going nowhere until she decided otherwise. I could hurt you now, she continued. Could break bones, leave scars, give you memories that wake you at 3 a.m. sweating. That's what you would do, isn't it? His struggles weakened as reality sank in. He was completely at her mercy. But I won't, because that's the difference between strength and brutality. I have the power to destroy you, and I choose not to. That's what real strength looks like. Vincent, the ability to show mercy from a position of power. Something broke in his face then. The mask he'd worn for so long cracked, revealing the frightened child underneath. I didn't want to be weak anymore. I couldn't be weak. He said, my father said, weak people deserve whatever happens to them. Your father was wrong. Eleanor's voice held no judgment, only understanding. Being vulnerable isn't weakness. Asking for help isn't weakness. Choosing kindness when you could choose cruelty. That's the hardest kind of strength there is. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Through the gym doors, Eleanor could hear commotion voices, footsteps, authority arriving. It's over. Vincent, the question now is what you do next. Double down on this path, or find a better way. The doors burst open. Police officers flooded in, followed by Principal O'Brien, Madison Chen, and surprisingly, a woman Eleanor didn't recognize. Tall, severe, wearing a suit that screamed lawyer or government official. Ms. Bennett, are you hurt? Officer Martinez approached carefully, taking in the scene unconscious bodies. Eleanor restraining Vincent. Clear signs of combat. I'm fine. Eleanor released Vincent, who curled into himself on the floor. These students attacked me. I defended myself. She assaulted us, Nathan groaned from his position against the wall. Unprovoked, Madison stepped forward, phone raised. I recorded everything through the door crack. The threats, the weapons, the attack. It's all here. Principal O'Brien looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. There must be some misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, the suited woman interrupted, is how long this school has allowed violent criminals to terrorize students. She showed her badge. Agent Sarah Coleman, FBI. We've been investigating corruption in Westbrook for months. This incident just gave us everything we need. Vincent was helped to his feet by officers, hands cuffed behind his back. He looked smaller somehow, deflated. As they led him past Eleanor, he stopped. I'm sorry, he whispered. And for the first time, it sounded genuine. I'm so sorry. Eleanor met his eyes. Apologies are just words. Vincent, show me with actions. Get help. Become better. It's never too late to change direction. As they led him away, something shifted in his expression. Not hope exactly, but maybe the possibility of it. The next hour blurred with statements, evidence documentation, and medical checks Eleanor didn't need, but protocol demanded. Parents arrived in various states of outrage and denial. The alumni who'd fled were quickly located and arrested. Through it all, Eleanor noticed Oliver standing in the doorway, tears streaming down his face. You didn't have to. Why would you? She pulled him into a fierce hug. Because you're worth fighting for. Every student here is worth fighting for. Never forget that. The aftermath rippled through Westbrook like an earthquake. Agent Coleman's investigation revealed years of corruption, cover-ups, and criminal negligence. Principal O'Brien resigned in disgrace. Several city officials, including Vincent's father, faced federal charges. Eleanor became something of a legend overnight. Videos of the fight captured by security cameras went viral with careful editing to protect student identities. News outlets clamored for interviews. Publishers wanted book deals. She turned them all down. 3 months later, Eleanor stood in the same gymnasium. But everything had changed. Bright lights replaced the emergency red. Students filled the space. But not for violence, for learning. "Remember," she told her after-school self-defense class, "martial arts isn't about becoming a fighter. It's about becoming someone who doesn't need to fight." Oliver, now her assistant instructor, demonstrated a basic escape technique with growing confidence. Madison led warm-ups with natural leadership. Even some former bullies had joined, genuinely seeking to change. In the corner, working through basic forms with intense concentration, was Vincent Lawson, out on bail, awaiting trial. Mandated to community service, he'd chosen to spend it here, learning a different kind of strength. "Ms. Bennett," he approached after class, tentative as a new student. "I've been seeing a therapist. Like you suggested, it's hard, facing everything, but I think I'm starting to understand. Understanding is the first step. What's the second? Action," he said firmly. "I'm testifying against my father about everything. The abuse, the corruption, all of it. My lawyer says I'll probably do time, but maybe that's what I need to really change." Eleanor studied him, seeing genuine remorse beneath the surface. "Prison isn't rehabilitation, Vincent. It's punishment. Real change happens when you choose it every single day, especially when it's difficult. Will you—" he struggled with words. "Would you write a letter for my sentencing, not asking for leniency? Just maybe explain about that night, about mercy from a position of power." "I'll consider it," Eleanor said. "But first, you have someone else to talk to." She gestured to where Oliver was cleaning up equipment. Vincent's face paled, but he nodded and walked over. The conversation was too quiet to hear, but Oliver's eventual handshake spoke volumes. That evening, Eleanor sat in her empty classroom, grading papers about Lord of the Flies. The essays showed deeper understanding, now students writing about the nature of power. The courage required for kindness. The strength in standing up for others. Her phone buzzed. Master Kim, calling from Korea. "I heard what happened." Eleanor, you used the avalanche after all. "Only as much as necessary, Master." The mountain stood firm first. "And saved many by becoming the storm when needed. Your father would be proud. You've become what we always trained for, not a fighter, but a protector." After the call, Eleanor walked to her car through the same parking lot where her journey at Westbrook had truly begun. No more vandalism, no more threats. Just peace earned through necessary action. Madison caught up with her. "Ms. Bennett, did you hear they're making you interim vice principal? And starting a whole anti-bullying program based on your recommendations?" Eleanor smiled. "Change doesn't come from titles or programs, Madison. It comes from people brave enough to stand up, speak out, and protect each other. Like you did, like we did. I couldn't have done anything without students like you and Oliver finding your courage. That's the real victory here, not the fight, but the community we've built after." As she drove home, Eleanor passed City Hall where, under federal investigation signs plastered the doors. Vincent's father and his network were facing justice that had been delayed far too long. But more importantly, she passed Westbrook High, where students walked without fear, where kindness was no longer weakness, where strength meant lifting others up instead of tearing them down. The mountain had indeed become the avalanche when necessary. But now it was time to be the fertile ground where new growth could flourish. Eleanor Bennett had come to Westbrook to teach English literature. Instead, she'd taught an entire community the most important lesson of all: True strength isn't measured in the fists you throw, but in the hands you extend to help others rise. And sometimes, just sometimes, you have to fight to create the peace where that lesson can be learned. The girl who once tried to swallow pills to escape her pain had become the woman who stood between bullies and their victims. The broken had become the protector. The victim had become the victor, not through violence, but through the courage to use necessary force in service of justice and mercy. As Master Kim always said, the warrior who wins without fighting is skilled, but the warrior who fights to protect those who cannot fight, that warrior is righteous. Eleanor Bennett was both, and Westbrook High would never be the same. The story of Westbrook High's transformation didn't end with handcuffs and headlines. Real change, Eleanor learned, came in quiet moments nobody filmed. 6 months after the gymnasium confrontation, she received an unexpected visitor. A middle-aged woman stood at her classroom door, expensive suit at odds with trembling hands. "Miss Bennett, I'm Catherine Lawson, Vincent's mother." Eleanor's instinct was defensive, but the woman's red-rimmed eyes spoke of sleepless nights and hard truths. "Please, come in." Catherine sat heavily, designer purse clutched like armor. "I wanted to thank you for what you did, not the fighting, the mercy. You could have destroyed my son that night. God knows he gave you reason. Vincent's working hard to change. That takes courage. He is, because of you." Catherine's voice cracked. "For 18 years, I watched my husband turn our son into a weapon. I was too weak, too scared to stop it. I failed Vincent every single day of his life." Eleanor chose her words carefully. "We all fail sometimes. What matters is what we do once we realize it. I'm divorcing Richard, testifying against him. It's terrifying. But Vincent needs to see that standing up to bullies starts at home." Catherine straightened slightly. "I'm also donating our family's foundation money to fund anti-bullying programs. $3 million. I want you to help decide how it's used." The weight of that responsibility settled on Eleanor's shoulders. $3 million could change countless lives if used wisely. "There's one condition," Catherine continued. "I want Vincent to be part of it. Not as a leader, but learning. He needs to see the damage he caused and help fix it." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Redemption through service. I think that's exactly what he needs." That afternoon, Eleanor found Oliver in the library, tutoring younger students in mathematics. The scared boy who once ate alone now radiated quiet confidence. "Ms. B," he grinned. "Did you hear I got into MIT full scholarship?" Eleanor smiled when she heard the news. Fear was indeed the real enemy, not the Vincent Lawsons of the world, but the silence that let them flourish.